Hi, Carol here. Welcome back to part two, where we're going to use acrylic paints over top of part one. And if you want to see that video, I will certainly link it up for you. Now, the one thing I'm going to show you is the product line of what we're going to use. We are going to need some different style paint brushes because they each have a unique ability to lay out certain acrylic paints. Cutting apart a plastic motel key holder here, and I want it in different widths, so you cut it whatever widths you would like. I'm taking my vintage photo and I'm going down in different widths all the way down the canvas, and yesterday I put in some lighter distress ink so that the trees look like they were farther back. I made them shorter and distant. And I'm applying some clear embossing powder, but I will wipe off any embossing powder that is not on the trees. And there's a reason for this here. The crackle worked amazing. I will link you to part one so you can see the amazing effect that crackle had on actual tree bark. It really did look amazing. So once I have that on there, I'm going to heat set it, and I'm going to show you up close. Look at the crackle on that. Heat setting this will actually activate the crackle, and I will get some larger effects in the trees as far as the crackle is concerned. And to me, mixed media is all about the texture. I love texture, and you will see that. See the tall trees in comparison to the lighter trees in the background? I wanted to have this misty look from the Distress Crayons in the background. I wanted to add some actual design. That's why I'm holding it up close here. I want the eye to actually imagine what this forest is like. I want to bring forward the darker trees and push back the other trees. And look how that wonderful stencil just added extra tree foliage to the whole project. I am in love with this. I think, Marla, you're going to be really happy with the end results. I'm using this Da Vinci gum Arabic so that it will thin out my acrylic paint but also prolong the drying process. And what I like about actually using this is because of the long detail brushes that I'll be using for my twigs and to make ultra fine lines. The colors of the paints I'm going to use, and it's Liquitech Basics that I bought a huge set with my 40% coupon at Michael's. I'm using some Prism Violet, Silver, Ivory Black, Gold, Primary Yellow, Titanium White, Light Green, Cadmium Yellow and Cadmium Yellow Light, Bronze, Hooker's Green. I am using a deep green, neutralized grain value 5, primary blue, raw umber, Naples yellow, cadmium orange, and Mars black. I like to mix my paints so they're not in their natural state because it is much nicer to have a consistency that you make. Here's both waters in my teacup and my fold-out tulip flower water container. I'm using some paper towels because I like to dip it in the water. I like to wipe the paint off first, then dip it in the water, and then put it to the clean water. It gives me a nice clean brush. I've already painted on the first tree, and I've used my titanium white and my cadmium yellow mixed together. I don't want to have a harsh white on the trees. And these, see how I wipe it with the napkin, then I put it in my first water, which makes it so it's not muddy, and then I add it to my other clean cup of water. Now I did a wall mural, a full wall mural of a birch tree for my son and his wife and my grandson. They were hanging these wooden little birdhouses with little night lights hanging from the birch tree. I had a blast doing a wall mural. So anyway, let's get on to this beautiful acrylic painting for Marla. I've taken my white Finnabar silicone brush and I have run it down the left side of my birch tree in a thin line because I'm going to be able to draw out from the black, and actually this is a mix of black, violet, and gray to get the line to pull from. And then I'm taking my motel room card that I cut and I'm pushing it out with that. This is a wonderful, wonderful way to get texture, and we've already applied the crackle, so you have a wonderful texture on here. And I love the fact to keep the paint on there in bulk. I don't want it to be flat because I like my trees to have texture. If you look at a birch tree, it has a lot of pulled back bark on the trunk. It has a lot of texture and it has different hues of gray and black and purple and violet, all kinds of colors. And here I am drawing from the sides and I'm making myself some wonderful thickness, and it depends on how you pull it. Here I'll take it off and I'll put it back on, and this is definitely a beginner tutorial. You won't find any problem if you follow this step by step to do something just like this on a canvas. So now I am applying the violet black down the sides so that I can come in again with the silicone brush and add some more of the black violet gray to the sides. And I will work this many times through the process. I had to keep it at around 35 minutes and speed it up because it took me all afternoon to do this drawing because number one, I'm very picky, and number two, I wanted to make sure that the acrylic paints were mixed just right. I wanted to get the proper hues in it so that it did look realistic. I'm going to use 3 different sizes of my paint brushes to get the actual branches the way I want them. I want thick branches, thin branches, and super fine branches as they branch out farther. And this is a good way of doing this. Silicone brush, let me tell you, is wonderful for this because you can use the edge at the end and you can actually tap the colors you want, and you can see more of the violet here, can't you, in it, because you don't want no tree trunk or tree twigs and stems are black. They have hues in them, which is wonderful. So, and I want it to look like a winter scene, so I'm going to take my little plastic door thing and in comes more texture. I'm all about the texture, and I want to put some of the white in here. Now this is a direct white and you want to tip it because if you tip the edge you will get the paint that's farther up on the plastic. From this point I'm just going to explain to you how I was painting this on this afternoon and my thought process. Here I loved the way that the plastic looked as I ran it down. I was able to get some thin lines and some medium lines. I was able to use it with direct white because then I'll be able to use a thinner black detail brush to get in there and make the lines thinner. And I'm coming in with that Finnabar brush. I love this. It really gives you a realistic look. It brings it to life because twigs aren't straight. Twigs have texture and you want to apply that. I'm going to give you a close-up here on how it looks. And that is the whole idea to using the crackle, using different textures, leaving the paint on thick and thin, and applying it as your eye sees it, because all trees are different, right? I will take the silicone brush, I'll take my paintbrush, and I will take my fine liner detailed long stem brush for the twigs that are going to work their way out really fine at the end. Here's the silicone brush. I really enjoy trees. They're a beautiful, beautiful nature scene to draw. And here I'm showing you that I add my paint farther up on the plastic, because if I tip it, I want to be able to get thicker texture. That's the whole idea. You don't want to have all of it gray, you don't want to have all of it black. You want the tree to look like it's rounded. And in order to get that effect, you're going to have to push that black violet into an oval shape to give that tree some beautiful oval appearance in your birch tree. So now I'm going back. It's a game of back and forth actually on how you like it. And if it doesn't look like it is realistic to you, go back. Because you know how you can peel the bark off of a birch tree? I want it to look like it separated itself from the actual trunk, and I want it to look like it would peel. Now, I like to apply a generous amount of acrylic paint because when I scrape, I'm going to have a lot of layers underneath, so I'm not going to hit the layer with the Distress Crayons. I'm going to have enough texture, enough acrylic paint to be able to draw from it and add more deeper tones onto the tree without having to compromise anything. Birch trees to me are amazing. I sat all afternoon, and the more I added the texture and the more I deepened the black violet and the grays, and I ovaled the silicone brush and the actual plastic piece, it truly came to life for me. And I sit back. That's what you want to do. You want to add a little bit. You want to sit back, take a look at it, draw a line down the trunk and draw from that black violet, push it in, and you will get the effect that you want. I am telling you, it is one of the most calming craft that you can do. That's what I'm trying to say. Excuse me. I get so excited when I paint. I love to paint. It is therapeutic. If you're not feeling well and you sit down like I am today, it brings you into a world of beauty. And it shows you how God created this beautiful, vast. There's my detail paintbrush. And I am going to take this with the Da Vinci. I'm going to thin it out, and here we go. We are going to make some glorious branches. Oh, I love to make branches. Now, you have to be patient when you are painting. That's one of the things, because you're not going to be happy with everything you lay out. And if texture is what you're looking for, you certainly are going to have to apply and reapply. Because birch trees and any tree is all about texture, the crackle, the addition to lines, to detail, is a wonderful experience as a beginner, as intermediate, or as a professional painter. It is so therapeutic. I encourage you to get a canvas and to get some acrylic paints just at Michael's. They don't have to be professional acrylic paints to get the joy that painting brings. It gives you joy. Like Bob Ross used to say, the joy of painting. He would just bring you into another realm. I loved watching him paint. Here we go. Here's my fine liner detailed paintbrush. Love this thing. Makes the best tree limbs ever. If you apply it with pressure, you'll get a thinner branch. If you ease off and thin out your paint, you'll get a fine, fine branch. I'm adding the yellow and then I'm taking the black violet, I'm dipping it back and forth. I'm not even cleaning it off. I'm going from one paint to another. Now I want to add some from the actual trunk. And you can see how I tip it to get a thinner line, how I release it to get a fine line. I want to make sure I make it clear here. I'm not comparing myself to Bob Ross. Although I use a lot of his products and I'm using his acrylic paint applicator underneath my painting here. I just love to watch his and listen to his calming voice and his expertise. And it was all about enjoying yourself. It was all about the experience of painting. And here I'm taking my detailed fine liner brush, the long stem brush, and I am looking and I'm releasing and I'm imagining these wonderful twigs coming off of this glorious birch. And now I want to make sure that I have enough darkness where the branches are stemming out. Darkness, I don't know if that's the actual name for it. I want it to release itself from the trunk. So you can go back and forth here to make sure you can get that effect. I wanted it to be deep in color, but I didn't want it to be the black violet, the really, so draws your eye straight to that. I didn't want that. I wanted it to disappear. And now I'm using the Da Vinci again. I want to thin it out for those extra fine, beautiful stems and twigs that release themselves out into the air. It is amazing. I just love it. So here I'm going over it, and because it's a snow scene, on the trunk I want them to be darker, and out into the atmosphere there I don't mind adding some snow white. It's not direct white. I had the cadmium yellow mixed with the titanium white, but you can't tell there, can you? And I do add titanium white as a direct paint onto the actual birch trunk. I want to get both the direct white and the cadmium yellow mixed with the titanium white. It makes it more natural. So here I am just taking the Arabic mixed in with the paint, and look how it will just ride that color beautifully. Simply a relaxing thing to do. That's all I can tell you. It's so relaxing. And remember, I want to put birds on this. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, which twigs that are coming out are going to rest these birds? And that's how, in my mind, I'm thinking of that. I'm going down the trunk again so that it pulls it out with the black violet, which I add a little bit of red, and I add a little bit of the titanium white. And you can see the vintage photo trees that I brought down, and we crackled, and we added clear embossing powder so that they would stand out, and it would bring these birch trees so far into the forefront, and the forest would be in the background with this turquoise mist and the taupe. I absolutely had a blast painting this for you, Marla. Once we get satisfied with the branches and the beautiful way that they thin out and thick out, I want to think of the knots that are in the birch tree. Being an avid hunter that I am, I'm out into the actual outdoors. Sometimes I'm in a tree stand, sometimes I'm on the ground, and it gives me opportunity to look at the beautifulness of nature. And I love to see these knots in the trees. They're beautiful. And once again, what this is to sit back and take a look at it. Don't delve into your paintings thinking it's all going to come together the first time. It's not. You are going to have, it's going to take trial and error. It's going to take looking at it, backing away, adding texture, taking the texture away. I sure do get excited when I paint, don't I? So now I'm adding finer birch trees, those little twig birch trees that are, I want them to be in the forefront, but I want them to be alongside these other beautiful trees, the brown trees that we made with that beautiful crackle on them. And here you can see how I'm tipping the plastic piece down so that I can add more paint. I'm pushing it out. I'm making it thin and thick. I'm taking my long detail brush to make some beautiful fine little branches, just those slight little branches that make a birch tree have its own character. I just love it. And I'm adding some of the black to the side of this thinner birch tree, and I'm going to pull from that, and it gives you the shadow. It gives you depth. It just makes it come alive. It made me feel like I was actually in this beautiful forest, and it had that beautiful richness of these glorious trees, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to push a tree over to the right side there, a thicker tree, so that it didn't cut the painting off and have it end with just the actual trunk of the brown tree. I wanted it to have another birch because this is all about the birch trees. It's all about winter. It actually look how it draws the light to the background of this scene, and it looks like it has a little bit of a brook when you are dealing with the lower third. It just has a lot of elements that the eye can take in. Ah, it is beautiful. Now we have a little ways to go on here after I add more texture. To me, painting is all about texture. It's all about raising it up and making it look realistic. So here I'm applying this knowing I'm going to add a bird. I'm going to add a bird's nest to the upper left. That's why I've left that portion alone in the upper top corner, because I wanted to have some feel of mixed media. I wanted to have a feel of 3D. So I'm just going to add a little wee birdhouse with some straw. It won't be raised that high so that it takes away from the painting, but I want to have little wee bird babies in it. And I'm going to have the mama bird right there on that stem I'm making. I'm personally focusing in on this stem so that between the two I have a space to add the mama bird. So I'm going to add my shadows. I'm going to add different hues of color, and I want some fine twigs to release themselves from the trunk. Once I get the proper texture on the birch trees, and I'm sorry I keep going on, but I'm going to add sunlight in the next video. That's where I'll finish this completely off and move on to the other side of the 3D mixed media piece. But here I wanted to add the backdrop of the sun rays coming down, and I will be able to do this once it dries, because obviously the sun will hit the tops of the trees, they will go in under the trees, and they will work their way from the sky down in these magnificent rays of different color. So we will do that on the next video. I'm going to slow this down into real time. Yeah, I give it a big thumbs up. I'm so happy with it. I'm going to move in close so that the texture, you can see it, and the values are exactly what I wanted. it looked like a little pathway. I had it all in this. The crayons, the Distress crayons added to the feature of this misty forest. And here comes the rake brush. Love using the rake brush. It has 100 different ways to use it, and here it's going to be for foliage of grass. But I want this grass, you're going to see that I am just adding the 4 different hues of green colors on the bottom with the rake brush. That way you don't get single strokes. So I will add it here, and then you will see me taking it away so that it is not so vivid, but it did need different hues of color. It needed that white to be mixed in it, and that's what I'm using my plastic piece for here. So it works its way into the trees. Here comes a nice thin birch. Love it. It's going to work its way behind that big birch tree, and it's going to make the grass foliage not stand out so much. I'm adding some deeper hues of violet, green, and actual cadmium yellow mixed together. I'm going to wisp the sides of the tree so it has shadow, and it is going to come alive. Well, the next thing I want to add, and I'm sorry I didn't push the painting down farther so you could, there we go. I want to add a little bit of leaves to the top. I want a thick texture. I want different hues of yellow, greens, violet, all kinds of reds. It has everything mixed together, and I'm just tapping it with the brush so that it has the acrylic paint working for me. That's the idea. You don't have to have it look so it's like an actual leaf or leaves in this case. You just need to tap on the top of that paintbrush, add a few deeper colors if you want to add individual leaves like this that I'm doing right here, but it is not necessary. Pounce your paintbrush with all the wonderfulness of this acrylic paint, and you will be satisfied with the look, because even though it's winter, you still have a little bit of greenery. This is a Chinese whisk brush, and it is hollow in the center so that if you add texture, you're only going to pounce on the outside of the fibers. And I'm wetting it off and I'm putting it away, and you can see I still have the texture. I am going to show you how I blow this dry while the paint is wet, because it is going to raise up the bark exactly how I want it. This is truly intentional. Look at the realism in this birch tree. It is amazing. And you reactivate that crackle paint. It's beautiful. I'm so satisfied with the look of this painting, and I haven't even accomplished the inside yet. I'm working on the outside, but it's all about the relaxation. It's all about the different tools that you use. It's all about just getting into your painting and enjoying what you do. And I certainly enjoyed to paint. We are heading to the finishing line, everyone, and I've set a piece of acetate on the bottom of the painting so that I don't push any of the acrylic paint, and I slide my hand across it so that it stays in place and rests my wrist on there. So I'm now outlining the mama bird. I'm using it with the white acrylic paint on my fine short tip paintbrush. It isn't any particular bird that I'm drawing, just a nice colorful mama bird. And when I put the little bird's nest on the upper right of the trees and have the little wee baby birds sticking out and some twigs, up there and Mama Bird looking up at her little babies, this side will be complete. So what I'm using as far as paint here is the white, the titanium white mixed with some cadmium yellow and some actual lemon yellow color, and I'm using the black mixed with the violet. And I'm mixing some of the violet and red together. It's a mixture of all colors actually, and I'm dotting the leaves in. I am running straight consecutive lines for the feathers, and I just really am happy if it looks like a bird. Yeah, here's a close-up. Look at the texture. Oh, I'm telling you, I don't know. I'm all about texture. I love mixed media texture. I love using it. And this really, we're using only about 10 products, and I will list them on my blog. It's absolutely beautiful. And here, I think my main, how can I say this? I think what I like most is adding detail. Look at this little eye. I'm going to outline it with white so that you have the little eyeball in black, and then I'm going to add the slightest little white onto the black pupil. And here I'm curving the wings under the breast. I am making his beak more prominent. And sorry, there we're out of frame. And I am tapping in the different hues, black, violet, red, all of it mixed together. And I'm just tapping that teensy bit of black onto white onto the center of the black pupil there, right there. And now I'm going to work on the breast and the feathers. I want to add thick texture onto the feathers, and that's what I'm going to try to do and apply there. Sorry that the acetate is showing some of my light shining down. Here is the yellow that I'm using, and I'm so sorry I missed it, but I think it's lemon yellow mixed with cadmium yellow and a tad bit of red. So here, look at the mess. Yeah, I don't like to use colors on their own. I like to take them and mix them to make my own colors. That's the beauty of painting with acrylic paints. So now I will tap on a brighter yellow over top of the cadmium yellow, and once again, it's about the texture. I'm going to raise it up, and I'm going to add it where I don't want to have the feathers. So right here is where I want to add the little bit of texture on this little birdie. I love him. And now I'll work on the actual feathers. And the way I get this, and of course his little legs. His little legs have 4 different colors on there so that they will stand up. I start with the black violet, I go to the white, I go to the red, and I go to the cadmium yellow, and you will see that as I'm going. Now for the upper feathers, I am drawing them down. I'm placing, this is a fine tip paintbrush, and I am taking his wings on the bottom out. I'm going to square them off, and I'm going to keep the top portion of the wing that he flies with there in more of a point. I'm adding the titanium white to separate the layers of the feathers on his head, his breast, and the undercoat of feathers. I'm going to make him hang on to that branch for dear life. His little claws, there's 3 little claws, and they're going to be wrapped around that branch. And really, this does not do it justice. In real life, this just stands out beautifully, Marla. I think you're going to really be pleased to hang this up. I hope so. I'm doing my ultimate best to make sure that it is something you can be proud of. And right here, I'm going to add another thin branch underneath. so it doesn't look like give the illusion he is not on the branch, because I noticed there that it was more of a tree trunk. So I added a fine brush there, and now I'm going to work on texture. I'm going to finish up the detail on my little mama bird, and we are coming to the end of this painting, all but putting the nest in the upper right corner for you, Marla. I'm going to square off and make sure that the feathers are separated. His little claws are wrapped around that teensy weensy branch right there. And I want you to have a blessed week. Thank you for joining me. I will put the products on my blog. I appreciate you going over and watching part 1. Here's where I separate them. Now I added different lighting so that you could see this painting in different lights, some bright, some not, some so bright, some diffused, and some with direct light pointing right at the painting. I hope you enjoyed it, Marla, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody.